let us return to Visual Studio and learn a lot more about working with primitive types. When we are going to create variables, we always need to start with the type, because the type is going to indicate what values can be stored in the variable, and also what the range of variables will be that we can store. Let me show you. Let us say that we want to store a value of type integer. In that case, I will write int, so that is the type, that's the integer type, and it is in fact a keyword. As you can see, Visual Studio highlights it in blue. We've already talked about the rules regarding naming. So let us call this variable monthly wage. I'm using camel casing here. Camel casing uses a lowercase for the first word and uppercase to indicate the start of any next word. It's important that we give our variables good names that cover what they are doing. Here I'm indicating that using monthly wage. I will end this statement with a semicolon. Now I have a valid statement in C#. Now, of course, typically I'll want to assign a value to that. I can in fact do that upon declaration already. I can go back here and type an assignment operator. I've now used the single equal sign, and I can then specify a value. This value, of course, needs to be of type int, of type integer that is, because the type of the variable is declared int. We can also declare multiple variables in one go. Say that we have months, and that would be 12, that's another variable. I can now write a comma, and then I specify the name of another variable, bonus, and I say that that would be 1000. Now I have declared two variables of type int in one line, and I've also in one go given them a value. Now, of course, we can create variables of other types as well. Say that I want to create a boolean. I create a boolean variable using the bool keyword. Then I specify the identifier, the name, and that's going to be isActive. That can accept true or false. IntelliCode is already suggesting false, but I want to go with true here. Now we can also use the double keyword. Double allows us to capture floating point values. So, for example, if I want to give a rating, that can be a floating point number because it's not a whole number like integer. For example, let's say that that would be 99.25, a very good rating for the employee. Now, C# is going to check that the value that we are assigning matches the type that we have defined. But it's not only doing a type check, it's also going to check that the value is not falling outside of the range. Say that we have another variable of type byte this time. Byte can accept numbers between 0 and 255. My variable is called number of employees, and it is initially set to 125. Let's say that Bethany Spy Shop is growing, and it's growing a lot. At some point, we might want to assign 300. We've done a lot of hiring, and now we have more than 255 employees. That we cannot store in a byte, because bytes can only contain values between 0 and 255. And as you can see, the compiler is flagging an error on that, saying that it cannot be converted to a byte. So let's comment this out, because this is not going to work. Now, so far I have defined the variables and assigned them a value in one go as well. Of course, that is not always required. I can create a variable and only assign it a value later in the application. And of course, later on we can also change that again somewhere else in the application. Now, while doing so, what we cannot do is of course changing the type. Say that we, for example, want to say that monthly wage now all of a sudden becomes true. That won't work because the type is integer and I cannot assign true to integer. This is type safety. Once a variable is declared, it can never change its type.